Today we're going to look at 3 easy ways to auto-summarize data by month. So the one we're going to start with is a pivot table. So you can select somewhere in your data, you can just select one cell if you like, and then click on Insert and Pivot Table. Now if you're using the new table, you can just use it by name, which is the name right here. Otherwise, you can select the data just like that. And so you can make sure it starts with the table header here and then goes through the bottom row, including all the columns. So once you're done, you can go ahead and click create, and you can do new sheet or existing. So existing will be somewhere on this tab. New sheet will create a new tab. So we're just going to create a new tab. And then what we're going to do here is we're going to take date and put it into our rows. And then I'm going to right click over here and we're going to create a pivot date group. So we have a couple options here. So we can do just month. The issue with this one is if you have multiple years in this data. So in this data, we only have 1 year, but if we have more than 1 year, then this will actually summarize each year's data into those months. So that's one thing to keep in mind. Is if you have multiple years of data, you'll want to do year-month just to make sure that you're only getting that current year in those categories. And then finally, we can just take this amount and go down here. Let's scroll down a little bit into values. And now we can see the total sales by month in our pivot table. Now, sometimes people don't like to use pivot tables, or maybe this isn't what you need for now. So we're going to go ahead and go to our second method. So in this one, we're going to use formulas to take these list of dates and group them into months and then summarize these amounts. So let's start with our months. We're going to use an array formula, and this allows us to apply this text formula to an entire column. So I'm going to select this column. So you can either select it like this, and we can move 6, so it applies to the entire column. Or if you're using the new tables, you can use the table references, which is sales, and then that column. So this is the name of the table, and then the name of the column in brackets. And then next, we can decide what format we want this to be in, because text does a number and then changes to a specific format. So we can do a date format, like MMM, which turns it into 3-letter abbreviations for each month. And then I'm going to add the year, just so if we're running across multiple years, we're not running into issues. And so now we have the month and year, but it's showing up multiple times for each month. So what we can do here is wrap this in unique, and now it just has January, February, March, etc. So at this point, now we can create a sum ifs that will sum up these amounts by month. But I want to take this inner part here because we're going to use this in our sum ifs. So I'm going to copy this. And then over here, we're going to do sum ifs. And then I can again use my table reference here. And then this will be amount. And then comma. And I can paste my array formula there. And then I'm going to compare this to G2 and close this out. And then we can autofill or drag this down manually, whichever you prefer. So autofill will do it automatically, or you can come in here and then click on this lower right-hand side and drag this down. And there you go. So we can format this to a dollar rate amount there, and then decrease decimal places. And now you can see the amount summarized by month. So we could add a little header here just like this. And now we have our months and our amounts. Now one thing is if you add more data, it's automatically going to show up here, but this formula isn't dragged down. And so you may want to come down here and either leave a couple extra or make sure you drag down when you add new data. All right, and that brings us to our final method. So it's going to be a variation of this one, but we have a dashboard here where we want to incorporate these numbers into some kind of existing format. And so we're going to fill in those amounts here with a total. Now, one thing here that often happens is I have Jan, Feb, March, etc. So I have the month name, so I could use a variation of this and strip out the year. And that works if you only have a year's worth of data. But again, if you're going to cross multiple years, then we want to make this more resilient. And so I have the year in a cell by itself here, so we can actually use that to populate our table. So I'm going to go ahead and delete these. And then I'm going to do a little trick here. So again, array formula, and then I'm going to do date. And then in this date formula, I'm going to come up with something to make a little magic happen. So first of all, here's our year. And then for our month, I could do 1, for example, and that would give me January 1st. But what I'm going to do is sequence. And then I'm just going to put 12. And that's going to give me 12 months. And then comma and day, because we'll just use the first of the month to do this. And then hit enter. And now we have the first of each month. So that's great, but it's going down and I need to go across. So let's do transpose. And that's going to convert a vertical to a horizontal. So now we have them going across. And so this will work, but the display maybe is a little lacking. So we can go under formats here and go to custom date and time. And we can choose something like this. We could choose just the month. So we could do just that, for example. And now it looks like what we had originally, but these are actually dates. And so what we can do now is we can do a sum ifs. But in this case, we don't need to do that array formula stuff. We can just refer to our dates and our amounts. So I'm going to take our amounts here. And so again, you can just refer to the actual tab and range name, or we can use our table reference. So this would be sales amount, where sales date, and then now we can go back to our dashboard and complete our logic. So in this case, what we're doing is date is going to be greater than or equals to January 1st. And so the way you do that is double quotes, greater than, equals to, double quotes again, and then ampersand, and we can compare it to a cell, just like that. And then we need to make sure it stops at the end of January. And so I'm going to just copy this, do another comma afterwards, I'm going to paste, and then right now we're just saying both is greater than January 1st. So we need to change this to less than or equals to. And then what we're going to do here is we're going to use the end of the month. So we can use a simple end of month formula here. And then we do 0 to make it the same month. If you look at this question mark there. So 0 would be the same month. And so what this does, and if we hover over this, we'll see January 31st, 2024. So now we're just doing the beginning and end of this month. So because I'm referring to this cell, I can just drag this over and you can see now it's automatically updating. And so this is the advantage of using the table reference. If we used the reference to these, then as we drag this over, those references would change. And I'll just show you real quick what that will look like here. So we can use this and get the same effect, but if I drag this over, you can see that these references all changed. So again, if you want to use this, you'll just have to make sure you hit F4 to add dollar signs, and those dollar signs make sure these don't change. Now we're not going to add them to these because we want them to actually drag over. So at this point, now if I drag over, you can see these aren't changing, but these are, which is perfect because we wanted to go from January, February, March, etc. So either way you do it, you can go ahead and finish that out. And then I'm going to change this format to dollar signs and go ahead and remove those decimal places. And then let's go ahead and make this a little wider. It needs to be a little wider here, maybe 75, something like that. And then we can come up with our year total and add these up there. And there is our year total. And now we have a quick and dynamic summary of our year's data. So you can use this for multiple metrics. And then the cool thing is when you design it this way, you can simply type in a new year and it'll now pull from that. So we don't have anything 2025. Let me just go ahead and change one here to 25. And if we come back to the dashboard, now you can see that showing up there in January. So there's a quick and easy way that you can use a dashboard that you can quickly change one thing and see different years of data in your display. All right, so that is it for today's video. Make sure to check out the other videos on our channel for more tutorials on both Google Sheets and AppScript. And as always, have a great day.